know, in terms of applying for school, making it personal, you know, putting your information there so your information can be seen, and also, you know, being articulate and also being very careful when you put your information there, and the information you share along to coach with the different programs, the different schools that is out there. It's a lot of schools, and there's no lack of opportunities. There's a lack of people prepared for the opportunities. So when I listen to what you're saying, and I can walk away with that, coach, is people being prepared for those opportunities and being committed, doing their background work, checking, seeing what is transpiring, investigating, you know, getting the information. And this has to do with your life you're dealing with here too. This is not just school. This is your life you're talking about. And your email or your correspondence that you're sending, that really represents you. As a person, it represents you. So like, for instance, inside of my group, and I know I have a lot of parents listening and a lot of people from different parts of the world, because I'm on my phone too, with social media while you're speaking. So I know a lot of people from different coaches who are sending me texts right now from different colleges, and sending me texts on WhatsApp, and you know, different things are coming in on my phone while you're speaking, coach. Some of them are logged on social media too. And it's critical, kids. If, for instance, you know, I request of you to send a written profile and a video profile, and you don't have the time to put that together to send to me, what information can I send to coach for you? Just to hammer your point home, Coach Rudy, what information can I send? Because I am a collegiate coach too, and I am seeing the information you're sending me. And if I cannot take you into my school with that information you sending me, why would I put my name next to your name to send it to a coach that I know? That is not something that I would do. And I also too, I have discussions with kids and their parents, because I want to listen to you when you speak. I want to see your mannerism. I want to see how you sit. I want to see how you make eye contact, you know, that kind of stuff. Because when I send your information, you're representing me. And I want, when I send your information to Coach Rudy must text me and say, Coach Anthony, I need 4 more of these kids right now. Could you send me 4 more of these kids? I like this guy. And that is the kind of stuff we're really trying to do. And you cannot be guessing or indisciplined, for want of a better word, when you're representing yourself. You really got to be organized when you're doing this, because there's a lot of I wouldn't say money, so I don't want to use the word money, but there's a lot of finances, the same thing, involved in this for school. And coach, you know the different figures, and I'll ask you to say it, because I accustomed saying it, and that is why I bring coaches and different managers here, so they can say it. So it doesn't come from me alone in terms of your school and the costs we're dealing with, you know, for different schools.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked at a lot of different schools. I've worked at a lot of private schools. So I've always given the example of, you know, a couple schools I've worked at, I actually say it's easy, because the packages and the cost is in a way that it makes it very simple. But I've worked at schools where, like, because 2-year schools are generally inexpensive. I won't say cheap, inexpensive, because there's a big difference in the business terminology between cheap and inexpensive. But I was at some schools that, after aid, after scholarships, I was looking at kids paying on an average of $20,000 a year for a junior college. And you know, one of my top scholarship players at that school, or the top scholarship player at that school, could have gone and walked on to our rival and paid less. Right. And then, like, I gave him the biggest possible scholarship I could. I invested a lot of money in him to be able to help him afford school. And so it's like every coach has got a different system that they work within. And to figure out, I told some people I'm a creative solutionist, and by definition, a solutionist solve puzzles for a living. And so like figuring out that puzzle at the different schools. Like we have a player here at Blinn. He's on no athletic money, but he's because he's done well academically and all these other factors. At this point in his career, he's only paying like $50 some a semester. And like he plays quite a bit. So, you know, but it's like he's on no athletic money, which lets us invest that in somebody else. But I'm not, you know, going to throw a big amount of money at somebody that's has a high risk. And so I was at a school, for instance, to kind of hammer this point home of the investment that goes into and like the risk and reward. So this player's struggling academically, and it was a 2-year school up by where coach has been, and player's not getting it done off the field. And so I tell him, you are being replaced, and I am not able to place you at a 4-year school because I'm not putting my name on that person either. And I said, he said, oh, coach, but I just need more scholarship. I'm like, I can't. I'm not giving you any money, actually, because I can't invest in that risk. Like, why would I put money into this just because you want it, or, you know, whatever. And he was telling me like, but my mom's a single mother and all these things. And I'm like, you should have thought about that when you were doing poor academically. You know, why were you wasting your time if your mother's financial situation and all the times and things that she's done, if you really value that, why were you wasting your time and putting yourself into a position where you're going to be not in school anymore? Why didn't you come in and do it? Because, by the way, after this conversation, the next semester he's a 4.0 student. He went from being ineligible for the spring to having a 4.0 in that semester and actually leaving with a good GPA, and then I helped him get to a 4-year school. Like, he had it in him, but he was wasting his time, and he just wanted somebody to enable his poor choices. Basically, give me more money so I don't have to focus and this and that and the other. Not going to happen with me. And so, like, it's a big investment. You know, some coaches like Division I, and I want to kind of jump on the side because I thought about this when you were saying stuff, coach. Like, I've coached at every division, NCAA 1, Division III, NAI, and junior college. The only thing I have not coached at is Division II. However, I've worked at a school that a top NCAA Division II school, and I've refereed every division. So I've seen a lot of soccer all over the country. I've had players go to every division. And the thing that's different about our beautiful game, specifically on the men's side, and I'll get on the women's side a little bit in a second, but the men's game, I would say if you take the top 10 teams out of every division, but definitely the top 5 perennial powers in any division, and you play them against each other, barring injuries, they're going to be about 500. You know, there's not a lot that separates Messiah from Indiana, or, you know, Charleston against Lindsey Wilson, or, you know, Tyler against trying to think of the powerhouse D3 JUCO program, slipping me at the moment. But, you know, like D1, D2, D3, NAI, JUCO 1, JUCO 3. There's now JUCO 2, but it's a very new division. Like, the top programs, and I've been around every single one of those programs to some extent, there's not a lot that separates the players. And like, I don't, an excellent junior college, you know, top 16, you know, program. And I was coaching Division I, and like those bottom tier teams in the conference, we would have rolled. Like, and you know, people say, oh, and I've been at NAI programs that in the spring we would play, you know, because there's no results, we would play a Division I team and we won. And it was like, and so like, when you're looking, if you get real tied up in the division, can be a real falsehood. in the quality. But if you get connected to what's an elite program is compared to what a poor program is, that's where it is, you know. And like NCAA Division III gives no athletic money, same with the JUCO Division III. But I'll speak on the NCAA Division III side. There are schools that will give like a diversity grant because they want more people from different countries. And I wouldn't get that, obviously. Look at me, I'm not very diverse in my looks and where I'm from. But, you know, maybe if that school was in California and I'm from Ohio, I might have gotten that. You know, there's different factors. And I had a kid who said, "Oh, I'm a D1 or D2 player. I'm not a D3 player. I'm better than that." Well, he chose a D2 school where he had to pay money. He signed a scholarship for a hot second, and they won like a handful of games in 2 years and didn't get in the postgraduate program that he wanted to get into. If he had gone to the $70,000 a year sticker price, because that's a difference of an actual cost, the sticker price of this Division III school that was number 2 in the country in the program, he would have been in the postgraduate program. He would have gone to the national tournament, and he would have paid nothing. He would have literally paid nothing. And he was an American who would actually got federal aid, and he would have gotten the refund check. Like he would have left with like maybe $7, $8, $9, $10,000 in the bank. So like being paid, you know, sort of to go to school. And he was like, "I'm better than that." Well, no, you're not, because you only won a few games. You didn't get in the program. It was all a choice on, you know, status that people will throw around about D1, D2, you know, NAI, JUCO, whatever it is. So you got to be, you know, eyes wide open. That sometimes the schools are a little smaller, or they're in a different kind of town, you know, based on their division, because they align in certain things. But like there are NAI schools out there that are thousands of students, and there are NAI schools out there that have 600 kids or 400 kids. Just like Duke is Division I. Everybody thinks they're this massive Division I school. They only have like a couple thousand undergrad students. They're not that big. They just have a lot of postgraduates and graduate students, but their actual undergrad isn't that big. And so like perception is not always reality. Now, the Ohio State University has like 100,000 students. Like that's mind boggling. But so there's 2 schools that are Division I, and they don't even look like each other. But sometimes the facilities are a little nicer, but not always. And there's some differences there. But on the field, the best programs are the best. And that's the kind of thing that, where if you're going to be an American football player, it'd be like, no question, if you're the best, you're going to play Division I, you know, because it's a different sport, and basketball is kind of that way too. You don't see the smaller or the different divisions competing with Division I schools. Even like the bottom Division I schools are generally just more dominant athletically. And that's where on the women's side, like depending on the conference, I was having a call with a friend of mine who coaches in the Pac-10, and like the conference has gotten really athletic on the women's side. And you know, I won't throw any other conferences around, but there's some conferences that aren't quite as athletic, but they're still really athletic. And so like on the women's game, like the athleticism is a big factor. That it's a different physiological scenario than with the men's game, where there's just so many good athletes. And in the women's game, there are good athletes, and then there's like exceptional ones that can get opportunities for players that even technically they may not be as good as their counterpart, but they're quote unquote a Division I athlete because they're 5'10" and they're really fast and they're very agile and they can jump. And like the 5'5" girl who's better technically won't be able to play in that league or that division that's so driven by athleticism. So that's one of the things in the women's game that is a big factor. So I wouldn't say necessarily all Division I women's soccer, like that the D2 couldn't compete, but athletically, there's a bigger gap there. So that's kind of a couple things that came to my mind when you were chatting about that stuff. And I think that's the fascinating thing with the two, it's the same sport, but with the two different sports, and how equal the best teams are on the men's side. And it is, I mean, you won't see those games posted a lot, but when I've been able to go to some of those games between those top teams in like the spring and sometimes the preseason, it's amazing to just see the quality of players across. And that's where, you know, there's so many players out there, and you gotta find yourself a home, because there are a lot of players who are looking.
Competitive. Thank you very much, Coach. Guys in the audience, in different social media platforms, you can type your questions. Who are in the Zoom chat room, you can type your questions. Please don't switch your mic on. We put a block on it. You may get through, but please don't switch your mic on. You can type your questions for Coach. Coach, I want to thank you so much for your presentation. Very informative. And you touched on the different areas that needed to be touched on. So parents and kids and would-be student athletes, they would have the information that is needed, you know, to be able to go forward and become successful. And you shared information too, not from just from a student athlete standpoint, but you shared from a coach's standpoint, which is very critical, what coaches are looking for, and the information that comes across a coach's desk and the amount of it that comes across. Very, very important. Coach, I know some questions are coming here, and I know you may be seeing them popping up on your screen. Are you seeing them popping up on your screen? If not, I can read them out for you. Okay.
I'm not.
Okay, beautiful, because I shared my screen with you. Oh, well, that is a question that you know, in terms of coaches' information, what we can share is what coach would let us share. And that will be coach's email we would share. We don't share coaches or anyone's phone number. So that was the question, Coach. And I would try to switch it across to so where you can also see some of that information that they send. So the only information from for Coach is that you would have to let me remove the pin in it. I think that is what it is, Coach. I removed the pin, so you should be able to see. Maybe if questions are coming up, I remove the pin on you, so you should be able to see. What are the academics potential? Is it coming up by your screen, Coach? No, it's not. Okay, then it's coming up on my screen load. So then I would go.
Got it.
Yeah, it should be coming. Is it coming up?
Yep.
Right. So feel free, Coach. We switch it across. So feel free, Coach, if you can take some of the questions. Feel free, and some of them too. I can answer some of them, Coach.
Yeah. So the potential academic potential of a junior college it's kind of a loaded question. There are a lot of different junior colleges out there, and this is where the research comes in. There are really good ones, and it's kind of like every different division has good academic schools and not good academic schools. But the general thing about a junior college that is a really big benefit is it's geared towards preparing you with the core classes that are required. Some people call them general classes or general studies or the basics, but it's the core classes you're going to need, you know, and you really should be. And this is where I'm hedging a little bit, because I've had some experiences where student athletes from other schools have reached out to ask my help to find them a school, and then I have a look at their transcripts, and they're basically taking what the joke in the industry is underwater basket weaving. Where they're not really taking collegiate classes, they're taking classes that are keeping them eligible, which really bothers me, because then they're not having classes, because once you get to that junior year, to be eligible in the different divisions are different requirements, but you've got to be showing progress towards a degree. So if you're actually taking real college classes, your maths, your English, your sciences, your history classes, then generally the class sizes are smaller to junior college than you would find at a four-year school generally in that first 2 years. And then when you get to your four-year school, the class size stays smaller because you're in your major then. So like if you go to a big four-year school, you might have hundreds of people in your English 101, your first English class, your first math class. Or if you go to a junior college, you might have 60 kids. So you get more attention. You might also have 30 or 20, depending on the size of the school. One of the things that you can look at is the transfer rate of the junior college to show like, and Blinn, this is like the beautiful thing. Texas has a bunch of junior colleges. Blinn College has the highest transfer rate of any of the 54 junior colleges in the state to four-year schools. And so that's outside of athletics, that's the school and the support structure. So you don't necessarily have to have the best, because if you've got a great coach that's going to help you get there. But if you see the school has those kind of credentials, it is a real driving force with the school. And so getting those general classes done in smaller classes is really good. And like different junior colleges have different pathways. Like and coach, you could speak on this because you've had some experience, but Blinn actually has the only junior college that I've worked at, and maybe one of only two that I know actually has a true engineering pathway. A lot of junior colleges have pre-engineering, which is, and I've actually had kids do this, it's a waste of time because about one of the semesters in 2 years actually goes into an engineering program. So instead of getting an engineering degree in 5 years, they're doing it in 6. But at Blinn, it's actually an engineering academy. They're taking real engineering classes, not pre-basic classes that would be a stepping stone. So like if you're going into one of those kind of majors and you like you get into the engineering program, but the standards at Blinn would blow your mind away, 4.0 and like over a 1400 to get in the engineering academy. You know, like I didn't have that. Now you can take engineering classes, but not be in the academy with, you know, still good marks, but not that hard. Anything else along that line, Coach?
Yeah. Yep. I think we have another question, Coach, there.
Yep. Born in the US. So the question is, they were born in the US, but they live in the Caribbean. They attended a combine, I'm guessing in the Caribbean last year. Didn't get selected. They want to know how they can market themselves, and how do they know if the school is both good academically and athletically? It's a good question. I'll hit right on that last part first. There's a resource, US News and World Report and the Princeton Review are two places that rank schools. There's probably others. Those are the ones that I type in. So I could type in, you know, Blinn College, US News and World Report ranking, and it'll bring up, and some schools aren't ranked. Some schools are, and it'll tell where it ranks in the region or the country overall, and sometimes specifically in an academic field. From an athletic sense, trying to think of how to present this without throwing anything under the bus. But you could look at a school and find their, again, like go to Joseph University or whatever it is, and then athletics, and you'll find their athletic website, and you can look at how they did. And I would like, usually at the bottom of the website is going to have like the conference, and you can click on the conference website and you can go and see where they stacked up in the actual conference, because maybe they were 5-5 in the conference, let's say, and they're middle of the pack. But then you see, oh my gosh, 3 of the top 3 teams in the conference were nationally ranked, and one of them won the national championship, and one of them went to the Sweet 16. And that third team was really good, but they only got 2 teams in the national tournament, and that team finished 5th. And oh, look at that, they lost by a goal, they won by a goal. You know, they're always in close games. Well, then it's when you start talking to the coach to see what their you know, their plans are, because this is the thing, you gotta, like, coaches who say we're going to become successful, the question needs to be asked, how? because I played for a coach who said that we won 2 games in 2 years. Just saying that it's easy to say things without having a plan. How do you market yourself? If you missed it earlier, it's it's doing the research on the academic and the athletic wise, and then personally contacting those coaches with film and the profile and a email that is personalized to them. That and I think being an American citizen is a unique maybe advantage, like that you have some resources in filing the federal financial aid, the FAFSA, that other people won't. And I think that's something that'll like it's something that where my brain hears that, I start solving a puzzle in a different way. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but I'm like, ooh, here's the way I can maybe you get nothing, maybe you get the whole grant, because there's grants and loans on the US side of things that are federal. So being able to write that and explain that to the coach is something that is really good. I can go on to the next one that's kind of a follow-up or